Wolves in sheep's clothing have pulled the wool over our eyes. For almost 500 years, the masses have been thoroughly deceived by a cosmic fairy tale of astronomical proportions. We have been taught a falsehood so gigantic and diabolical that it has blinded us from our own experience and common sense, from seeing the world and the universe as they truly are. Through pseudoscience, books and programs, mass media and public education, universities and government propaganda, the world has been systematically brainwashed, slowly indoctrinated over centuries into the unquestioning belief of the greatest lie of all time. A multi-generational conspiracy has succeeded in the minds of the masses to pick up the fixed earth, shape it into a ball, spin it in circles, and throw it around the sun. The greatest cover-up of all time, NASA and Freemasonry's biggest secret, is that we are living on a plane, not a planet. That Earth is the flat, stationary center of the universe.
Amandha Vollmer, welcome back to Planet Waves FM and Planet Waves TV.
Thanks for having me again, Eric. Good to see
Thanks
you.
for joining me. And I want to thank you for your ongoing work on unraveling germ theory. And really, that really is one of the worst tyrannies of them all, I think. And the more I observe it, the more ridiculous it seems. Really, like, you know, it's so ridiculous. So, and then then there's all this indoctrination, which I know is an important topic for you. So we're speaking to an astrological audience largely tonight. I've picked up a lot of people through my COVID exposés, but Planet Waves is at its essence an astrology website. So basically, we're a bunch of ballers and work in a model that is, the moon goes around the Earth, and the Earth goes around the sun, and planets go around all that, and Venus and Mercury are interior, and the rest are exterior. And in the system I use, there's about a million numbered minor planets. I don't know if you know that, but the Minor Planet Center has about 1 million. When you count all the asteroids, centaurs, Kuiper objects, trans-Neptunian objects, there's about 1 million at the moment. Then that whole thing is orbiting the galaxy. It takes about 240 million years to orbit the galaxy. The galaxy is part of a larger system called Laniakea, which is about 100,000 galaxies being pulled in the direction of mid-Sagittarius, the Great Attractor. What do you think is going on?
Well, cool story, bro, right? Cool story, bro, right? Cool story, bro, right? Cool story, bro, right?
Is this really where you live? On a spinning ball, a water-covered spinning ball, revolving around the center of the Milky Way at 500,000 miles per hour. Is this really where you live? Oh, no. Whilst I sit here drinking my apple cider vinegar. Oh, no. Okay, cool story, bro.
Cool story, bro, right?
Cool story, bro, right? Cool story, bro. Right?
You've never seen any of that with your own two eyes.
No
one has.
I have seen something. We'll get to that. What I have personally seen, because I have.
No, I mean like the meteors and these sorts of things, like whatever we're getting from the space hoax organizations, right? That has to be that suspect. And they're a sun cult. They're a solar cult. So they put the sun as the son of God. That's the center.
But the galactic
you were right
center,
about the moon.
But the
You're right about the
sun
moon.
orbits the galactic center.
But yeah, the sun and the moon are actually same size, and they're inside of our firmament, so we're actually enclosed. So that's like, so in the geocentric model, which we'll talk, about, actually all the astrology can work inside the geocentric model. It's just the way that it is looked at, right? Our perspectives change, and the sidereal understanding has to come in, because there's difference between the rotation of what we're told, like 24 hours is a day, right? So that's the sun exposure is 24 hours in a cycle, which is a clock. So it's like a big sky clock. And then the moon has its own, cycle. And then the firmament has its own cycle. And that's sidereal astrology, if you will, right? Because there's a difference in time between the sun and the stars coming full circle into themselves, which they don't, how they change, but they don't change, right? The constellations are always with us, obviously, or else we wouldn't have 12, these 12 or 13 astrological signs that are constantly there, because they come back. If we were floating through galaxies in space and whatever, all of that would constantly change. We'd never have the same rotation. We wouldn't have like a North Star that doesn't move. And everything moves around it. So when you shift the
observation
modeling,
arc is very small. I mean, the first telescope is invented in about 1409. So our observation arc with a telescope is only about 600 years. That's
it doesn't matter what we're looking at, what we think we're looking at, and what in the modeling, we can go all sophisticated. But let me preface here for 1 second. What's important when people come into this topic is the exact same way that people come to the germ theory, right? Because people will come in saying, well, I got sick, so it had to be a virus, right? Because look at all the sophistication. We have these microscopes now, they're so sophisticated, and we have all this technology, it's so sophisticated, and we have all these doctors and people working on it, and they can't be all in on it. They couldn't be liars. The PCR tests couldn't be false, none of this stuff. And it's the exact same with the cosmology, identical. So it's just from macro to micro. That's the only difference. So that can.
I need
help
a dialogue with
people.
you. Can I keep?
Yeah.
I need to.
Yeah, but it's hard for me to like lay up the understanding, because, and this is what happens like in this discussion a lot. A couple things. One, first of all, I'm not an expert. This is not. I'm a health practitioner. I just woke up to this in 2016, 17. So it's like not something I study 24/7, and not something that I'm a professional, explainer on, but what the parallels are important, and also the way that we have logical fallacies and a lot of conditioning. Just like with germ theory, we have a lot of conditioning we have to get through before we get to the understanding. So asking what it is, is not really, it's what it's not is really where.
May I speak to that? Because I did the work on the virus without the help of any of the doctors that we know. Kaufman, Cowan, Bailey, yourself. I met you all after I had figured out what was going on. Mm-hmm. And one of my most important influences was David Crow. And I took like a kind of a 5-pillar approach to the virus. My assignment was analyze the test, find out how the test works. But I also noticed that there were not patterns in society that resembled the spread of the virus. So with or without the virus, I could tell that the patterns of spread were not there. I didn't need to know whether or not there was a virus. I live in a suburb of New York City. 50,000 people allegedly died of COVID, but the buses and trains were running and nobody died up here, for example. Now with virology, there are no backyard virologists. Virology is very abstract, but there are a lot of astrophotographers and people with serious telescopes on their roof who are doing this. So it's not exactly a parallel, because you can't do virology in your house. You can put things on blast, but you can't spread it to your children and make an experiment and see if you all catch it.
But you can still look at bacteria. Like I have a microscope, I can look at bacteria I want. So that's part of the germ theory fallacy as well, that the bacteria doesn't cause a disease, and I can make a correlation there pretty easily. I can look at things very sophisticated And there's a lot of people who do things like that, and a lot of practitioners that look at blood and other things under the microscope where they're making assumptions based on the information they get, right? And so you can look at the firmament, and you can look through the firmament into the other layers, which are called the wandering stars, which are the planets, which are non-terra firma. You actually will ask any of them, you can see through these items. You can see through these so-called Saturn and Jupiter.
How do I know that? I mean,
if you see, any backyard astronomer, right, who has a really good telescope, and you go really up close, you can see those items in the sky, whatever they might be, which we don't know because we can't go to those things, but we can see they're translucent and they shimmer. So that's not like looking at a piece of rock or something where it's like solid all the way through, right? So
Mars, the moon, you can see features on the surface of the moon.
But the moon has a lot of mystique about it. So what you think you're seeing, for one, look at the moon during the day, right? Mm-hmm. We know that the sun is not illuminating the moon, or else you can't have the moon and the sun across from each other in the sky when the moon's at half. Those are very simple things. My daughter could figure that out. I'm like, look, honey, the sun is in the sky, and there's the moon, and the moon is half. So is the sun illuminating the moon through and the Earth's blocking it? No, honey.
Well, no, but
it has its own light.
A geophysicist would say that it's illuminating half of it because of the angle.
Well, just like a virologist would make an excuse as well.
They're at a 90-degree angle relative to the Earth. You can only see half of the illuminated side.
But no, it's above you, and it's very clearly above you. It's also very clearly small. But what my point was, you can actually see through the moon. So you can see, when the sky is blue, what they're calling craters, which aren't, you can see through them. You can actually see the color of whatever it's around. So the moon's in the black sky, then those spots are black. If it's a gray sky, whatever the color of the background in the sky, you will see that in the moon. It's actually translucent. And there are experiments and people who have done this that actually prove by the way that you see it could actually be concave, might not even be a round ball, whatever. But that's aside. We're getting into things. This is the problem. Okay, wait, Eric. This is the problem. You get the cart before the horse here. You have to get foundational principles on where you live and understand that we live on a flat space. That's calculable, proved many times over. So
what's the structure of the flat space? So we're on is it a disc? What's the shape of the flat thing that we're on?
Okay, so here again, this is not me to prove that. I'm just proving what the lie is. Okay, it's the same thing with virology. We know it's not a virus. That's bullshit.
Oh, you don't know the shape of the...
Oh, no. I'll give you models, but I'm just telling you, when people come into this discussion, they get ahead of themselves, okay? And they want proofs of what it is rather than unraveling the lie first.
I'm asking your concept. I'm asking your...
Okay, sure. So the understanding is that we have a central north space. Some people call it Mount Meru, whatever. It's a magnetic north. And then surrounding the whole area is an ice wall. So that it's a contained space, right? So it's not like, those flat earth models that are floating in outer space and stuff falls off the edge. That's classic first time or newbie question. So in this modeling, there's a prediction, okay, the newest, okay, the leading edge of flat earth understanding is that there's a lot more land that's been hidden beyond this. And two of the things we have are the moon map. So the moon actually being almost like a photographic plate that has the image of the moon. So if you invert the moon, you can get the entire map from the moon. So you could look up moon map, that sort of stuff, and you can get that. And then there's the old astrological clocks that you can find. I think there's one in Luxembourg. And this, wait, I can actually look up where that is.
In astrolabes?
Astrolabes prove flat Earth as well. Yes. So I'll look up what it's called. But it's basically looking at the entire moon structure, the entire map on this clock. So what happens is where we see the land changes as that massive clock moves. So it shows that there's a lot more land to this place than we've been told. And that's one of the reasons why they made the ball, because you can really easily cut out the pieces of land that you want, lay it over a ball, and people think that's it. That's all there is to explore. But meanwhile, they have the Antarctic Treaty signed by 16 major countries that you can't go to these areas or you'll get arrested. There was actually there have been explorers that try to go to these areas and they're put in jail.
But Dave Martin went. I had a client who worked in the ice station. She was a scientist.
Yeah, they don't go there. They don't go there. No, they go to specific areas they're allowed to go. If they start to go traveling, they would not be allowed to do that.
But you would,
so nobody goes
take
there.
Dave Martin at his word that he went to Antarctica?
He probably went to the portion of Antarctica that people are allowed to travel to on their little penguin tours. So they say, "Hey, look, it's a continent," but it's not a continent. It's not a continent. So so there's an entire ice wall that's been filmed. People have filmed that. Again, that evidence is there. So the model is basically
he visited part
land
of the rim. He visited part of the rim when he went.
Part of the rim, yeah, exactly. You know, if they wanted to shut us up, right? If they wanted to just stop us flat earthers from talking, they could do some very easy things that they won't do, right? Like, for example, why don't they go and do a proper, like, zoom in from a satellite, okay, which don't exist, but zoom in from a satellite and show ships and people upside down. Very easily. Get one of their satellites that are supposedly flying through the Earth without any engine on them, and just start zooming. Just begin the zoom from there and keep going, and show me Australia with, like, ships upside down.
Wait,
they don't do that.
Have you ever used Google Earth?
They're not. You mean CGI Earth?
No, Google Earth. I mean, I've seen.
It's CGI. That's all CGI.
But my building looks a lot like my building when I.
Oh
zoom
yeah,
in.
they'll take pictures and then they'll transition into the pictures they took in their little airplane. But I'm talking about outer space. Go to outer space and zoom in with no transitions, nothing like that, no CGI tricks, and show it to me. They don't do that. Anybody can look up Earth, ball Earth, and it's every single one is CGI or composites. And even the people who make the composites, the artists, they say with their repeat clouds, it's a joke. I mean, every single year they give you a new image and every single one is different. They're not consistent at all. They could also launch a rocket in the middle of, like, a huge mass of land. They always do rockets near water because they always angle and curve and go down into the water. So they could do that. They could prove it to us by launching a rocket in the middle of a huge mass to prove that it's actually going up past the firmament, which they can't get past. You can look up Operation Fishbowl for that. And then they could show us a 48-hour straight in any direction flight, 500 miles per hour. Okay, just go straight, and that the plane will return where it landed. And that's never been done ever. It's a very simple experiment that they could do to prove, but they don't and they can't because that nothing's been circumnavigated as far as keep going straight. That's not what's happening.
So let's talk about circumnavigation. There is a circumnavigation club of amateur yachtsmen, and they have rules they have to follow. They've got to travel 23,000 miles. They have to cross the equator 3 times. They cut through Panama and Suez. Why haven't they noticed this problem?
Well, some have actually. I believe one of Bob Noto from Globebusters interviewed one. I was on that show. Who had done those races, and he knew that they were actually, because the magnetic north is in the center and they're just following the compass is always going to pull them in that circle. He knew that something was wrong, and he talks about it. I'll see if I can find that one for you. It was really well done.
She's saying when they circumnavigate, they're kind of going.
They're going around the flat Earth,
parallel to the rim. Around.
Not that far. They can't go that far. I mean, you can't go past the south of the 60th. North of the parallel, but the magnetic North Pole, that motionless space, that's guiding the ship. Everyone knows in ships that Polaris guides the ships, and every point out from there heads south, right? And so this is just a lie to manipulate people into believing the globe model that's been circumnavigated. It hasn't. They're just going around the flat plane.
But there's a whole organization of people who've circumnavigated. I mean,
yeah, they haven't gone around a ball. They're just going around a flat Earth. That's it. You can circumnavigate. They're all disciples of the ball Earth. So, when you're in a religion, that's how you're going to fit in what you think you're seeing. That's the problem. You have to burst through the lies first. And so, but it's very easy to explain what they're doing. We have their maps. When you look at the flat Earth map, they're just going in all around the circumnavigating on the flat plane. They're coming back to where they were, just around the landmasses. They go to their convenient spaces where they can fuel up and get food and all that kind of stuff. They're not going off course. They're following their compass that's leading them the east-west, which east-west goes around in a circle. And everything is, when you have magnetic north, the compass will point to that center spot, and then everything else is south from there. And so if you have your compass thinking what you're going in 4 directions when you're not, then of course it's going to look great on paper, but that's not what's happening. So they just haven't done these proper experiments to show us, to just shut us up. Just do it. Just do those things, and then all the flat earthers will magically go away.
Well, but, you understand why they're not worried about you, right? Because
they're indoctrinated, sure.
No. Because all the technologies, like, for example, the prediction of sunrise.
Day after day, alone on a hill, the man with the foolish grin is keeping perfectly still. But nobody wants to know him. They can see that he's just a fool, and he never gives an answer. But the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning around. Well on the way, hid in a cloud, the man of 1,000 voices talking perfectly loud. But nobody ever hears him or the sound he appears to make, and he never seems to notice. But the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning around. And nobody seems to like him. They can tell what he wants to do, and he never shows his feelings. But the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning around and around, spinning around. And he never listens to them. He knows that they're the fools, and they don't like him. But the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, and the eyes in his head see the world spinning around.
The prediction of an eclipse. These are all calculated using a spherical model.
Well, I don't know those calculations. So again, like, this is not something that I'm like studying calculations and, I'm going to disprove them. But there's a lot of discrepancies there, of course. They don't have those, whatever they're doing their own little maths to fit in and shoehorn whatever they're trying to.
But don't you
predict.
think that I would have found, like, so for example, I mean, I'm a planetary astronomer. I'm an astrologer, but the branch of astrology that I do requires me to understand planetary astronomy. So I'm kind of a solar system guy, because I've worked with the discoveries of these bodies and the naming process of them, and interviewed the scientists who've done it. And
like, you're interviewing virologists, and the virologist said, we found it, and here's what we're naming it.
Actually, the virologists I've talked to have been very insightful in helping me take it apart. I mean, Thomas Melendi was one of my best interviews, and he said, we're putting the virus together like a book, basically admitting that it's metagenomic transcription and not a whole virus. And I know how to interview a scientist. One of the reasons why I did so well with COVID was because I had been through tours of duty with toxicology and astronomy for decades before I touched COVID. But anyway, what is nighttime? What in your model or this model? What is nighttime? What happens at night?
Well, the sun is going in its circuit above us. Well, there's a map. If I could show visuals, it's much easier. But anyway, the understanding is there's a firmament, okay, and the firmament moves, and so the light source is above the firmament. But if you understand concave lenses or convex lenses, if you understand how that works, if you shine your light source here and you have your lens here, you'll see the point of light inside of that space. You understand that, right? Have you looked at lenses at all? So
No,
if you shine your light here, okay, so you understand that projection, right? You understand how that works in the.
Well, I'm not sure what exactly you're.
So
you're
just
getting
let me finish. So then let me finish. So here's the source of the light,
Mhm.
but you have a glass, okay, dome that
A
it's
glass-
going through.
You saying there's a glass?
So then
dome?
that's the firmament. Yes, the firmament is impenetrable. So then you have and that's what you're studying. You're studying the big clock in the sky and all of the wandering stars that have their own rotations around and above and through the firmament, which there's waters above that. And so inside, then you get that reflection. So that's what we're seeing as our local sun. Okay. And so that local sun then is moving around like this. So that's your inside. Same thing with the moon. These are non-corporeal. You can't land on these things. They're considered plasma. So then in the model, right, you have your sun here and your flat land. And you have like a spotlight effect, which we can see because we can actually fly above the sun and people have done this. Say, oh, there's a local sun. We can see it below us. And so it's not 236,000, miles away. And so it's floated, it's going around in this space. And so you are moving, it's just simply moving away from you. So wherever your landmass is, that's night when the sun's over here. And when the sun comes closer, that's your twilight, which isn't explained on the globe model. There's no twilight, there's just a cut. And then you have your twilight and you have your daylight, and then it moves away again. And we have this evidence because we can zoom in to the sun moving away. Sun gets smaller as it moves away from us. And we can bring the sun back into view with proper photography to zoom in on that and bring it back. Same thing with ships.
You're
Same
saying
idea. We can bring those back.
It's not really below the horizon at night. It's just so far away that you can't see it.
You have to understand what's the horizon. Define the horizon. The horizon is actually a perspective, right? So how we see. So for example, as you climb stairs or as you climb up to a high building or you go in an airplane, you'll always see that the horizon rises to meet your eyes. And that cannot happen unless it's flat. And that was actually one of the proofs that woke me up personally, because I went to Manitoba. I went to their really high tower. They have a rotating restaurant, and I filmed that. And the horizon was at my eye level. So if you understand perspective, I recommend Rory Cooper. People want to learn more about perspective on a flat plane.
Well, you're saying when the horizon rises, you're saying that if you're on the ground, the horizon's there. And if you're 500 feet up in a tower, the horizon's there.
Correct. Because because if you were on a ball, so say it was a round shape, as you're rising, this would go away from your horizon line of your eyes. This would move away as you move away. But that's not what we see. What we see is it goes up with us, which means it's a perspective going down like a long hallway. If you've ever been in a long hallway with the lights on the side, you'll see that the lights just get smaller as they go away. But as you walk down the hall, it's the same light as you have next to you, right? That's at full size. So that perspective really helps you kind of understand that this can't be a ball. Okay. The other questions that you have, what it is, these are not, again, this is not my expertise. There's many others in the movement that have done a way more work, like F.E. Core has done it, David Weiss, Eric Dubé. These people have done so much work on this. This is just something that I like to help people come out of because it's a fiction. And
okay, but hold on. But let's stick with what's observable. Today at about 5 o'clock, the sun set below those buildings there. And
that went away. Yeah. It went away.
Yeah. It seemed to go lower and lower and lower. And then it,
as your perspective would see. Yep.
Disappeared behind the buildings. If you went,
unless you have superhuman, like Superman X-ray, so you can see really far.
The sun disappeared there at 5 o'clock. Where is it now?
Well, if you continue to drive toward it, if you like, say you got on the road, you're like, I'm going to go catch the sun. I actually did this once. You will, and you'll change time zones, right? You'll get into more light, so you can actually chase the sun directly.
But
But
that's
it's
equally
basically
arguable
just
for a
going.
ball model too, right? I
That,
mean,
right, but you still have to have
either way,
curve.
that would-
You still have to actually have curve for that, and we don't have any measurable curve. Curve has never been measured on this earth, nor movement has never been measured. There's not one experiment that you can find where it has actually been measured, even to look at Airy's failure or the Michelson-Morley experiment. Michelson-Morley proves that we are not motion. We have no motion. They couldn't detect
can you
motion.
explain that experiment?
Well, the Michelson-Morley experiment, back in 1900s, around Einstein's time, they did two beams of light, and what they were like ether drift and the movement with the lasers. So there's a bunch of mirrors and lasers pointing east-west, basically. So they're trying to see if the globe is moving in this east-west direction, then we should be able to measure it. Of course.
By Doppler shift? By Doppler shift?
By the laser shift. Yeah, the shift, exactly. So, but they couldn't find that. Actually, there was a gentleman who had to come in and try to do maths to make it happen, and then the fraud Einstein came in and made general and special relativity based on the adjustments that were done to Michelson-Morley, and it's been done hundreds of times since this particular experiment. I mean, that's like nail in the coffin for no movement, but this is well known in the flat Earth community. That's like.
Wait, when was the Michelson-Morley experiment?
I'd have to look it up off the top of my head. I don't know. I can find it in my notes.
Because the laser dates to 1960. I don't think Einstein was even alive. Michelson-Morley experiments in 1887. So it's like
1887, yeah, so 1900s, yeah.
Before the invention of the laser.
Well, maybe it wasn't laser. Maybe it was just light, reflective light. I'll look it up. And George Saginac repeated it as well. So let's.
But as far as what nighttime, I mean, this is a very important question. Is like, what is nighttime? Like in the most fundamental.
The sun is away. The sun is not illuminating. There's your night. Like there's.
So
no
what's the angle?
sun.
Like, what's the sun's angle to me right now? I mean,
So,
I
like-
can put it on an astrology chart, and I can.
I'm not gonna know the angle. That's not
No, approximately.
So-
Below? Is it below me? Is it hiding
below you.
just a little bit below?
It's the same as where it was in the day. It's just farther away from you.
Why does it rise up over there then? I mean, like, because
It's perspective, as I explained. It's the exact same thing. And we've done this with, like tabletops. Just take a tabletop, put a light source on the end, film, put your camera at the base of the light, and then just start moving away. Move away and see what happens. See where the light goes. And it'll appear to go down and away until it moves past the visual limit of your eye. I mean, you can't see forever. You do know that. Okay, so the sketch...
have you been to Burning Man, for example?
No, but that's flat, isn't it?
Well, it's the playa. It's a lake. It's a lake bed. So it's flat until there's mountains. It's just it's just a geological ancient lake bed.
They used light interferometers, so that's what they used. So in the early 1880s, they used light interferometers. So it's an apparatus that splits light at right angles, and they used a half mirror, and then they measured the interference of the beam of light with itself. And so with that apparatus, they were trying to measure the difference in the speed of light in each direction, and then measure the relative motion of the Earth and the ether. And so that was 1881. And and then they did it again. They thought maybe they made a mistake, so they did another changeover in 1885 to make something more accurate. And so then they used multiple mirrors to increase the path length. So they were just making it wider. And so basically it splits a beam of light into two perpendicular beams and then combines it back together. And so they were looking at the interference pattern of the combined beam. And so you can actually calculate the different speeds of each of the half beams. And so then they could measure the difference of the speed and then measure the relative velocity of the Earth and the ether.
Okay. So that's a little bit abstract compared to it's about to be light in the Philippines. Like here's what I'm always thinking when I get into the whole topic of flat Earth, that there's a wide diversity of technologies, including time zones, that depend upon a spherical model. and I've been working with time zones pretty much every day for nearly 30 years, you would think that I might have found some glitch in the system, some problem, but everything works beautifully. Everything is elegant.
It works on a flat Earth actually much better. And there's like a huge gap where is it between Russia and where's the huge time gap of like 6 hours or something between time zones?
No, but what I'm saying is all of these.
So it doesn't work perfectly. What I'm saying,
they're all based on a sphere. The mathematics. It all comes down to the mathematics.
Sure. The mathematics can be manipulated. Same thing with like lying about germ theory.
Give me an example of manipulation. I mean, everybody's calculations. The Navy's, the Swiss ephemeris, which astrologers wrote.
That's just appealing to authority. Like that's just the same logical
fallacies
over
works.
and over again.
It works like
it works on the ball works. Like you manufacture a fantasy and then you make the math work. Of course it's going to work, but it doesn't work in reality because you have that huge time gap between the two times.
I works. I mean something very specific. I mean that I am in the midst of all of these placements and calculations, and where I happen to use astrology software, where it says I'm going to find the sun in the sky, the sun is right there. How does it know that? How does it know that?
So, like again, the issue here is that because you're so locked into the belief, right? Because that's what you base your work on. So it's like a virologist writing a book and then they don't want to like go back and have to be like looking at it again. That's like, they think they know what they know. So isn't
that an arrogant assumption to assume?
No. It's
I am believing something and not.
Well, you are, because you're not listening. Like I just proved with like that experiment that there's no motion, but you dismissed it.
I'm not accepting that. I'm not accepting that. I would need to read the papers.
Well, then, do the reading of it, but then not. Then why am I presenting? Then I can just send you that information, right?
Because we're here for an audience. Did you? We are here. We're both presenters, right? We're both professional presenters. Did you happen to? Were you aware of the Venus transit of the Sun in 2004?
I'm not an astrologer.
No, it's an astronomical event. So in 2004, on a predictable cycle, which is every 120, 140 years, under the ball model, Venus will predictably pass between the Earth and the Sun and cross the disk of the Sun. So let me see if I can figure out how to share screen. Where's the share? Okay, let's share screen here. Nope. Okay. Now, I personally saw this. I went to Avebury Henge, and I know the person who took these photos, a guy named Anthony Iomamitis. Is this what's coming up on the on-air screen? This is my mouse coming up here?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So all the calculations said that at a certain time, Venus was going to reach the edge of the Sun right there, and then it would move in, and I personally saw this from
obviously there's a picture of it, but again,
no, I didn't see that. I saw it through a piece of welding glass, standing in Avebury Henge in England. I watched this and saw exactly that. What is this a picture of?
So again, this is why I prefaced, it's like this is not how you present this topic, because if you're coming from, well, then what am I seeing? Well, then what if it's not COVID, what is it? That's not my problem.
There's answers to that. And COVID itself was never documented as a thing.
No, I know there's answers to that, but
I saw this with my eyes.
I understand you saw it, and people thought they saw people die from polio too. But whatever this is, it could be a black body. It could be something that's happening above the firmament, because this is a projection and this is how you're seeing it. How you think you're seeing it is whatever is your lens, is your filter. So what I'm seeing is a picture of something that I can't verify, for one. However, they predicted cycles. We know that Venus, Mars, and all of the wandering stars have patterns that actually make beautiful flowers of life in a magnetic way over the Earth. We can measure that in a predictable way. They're a part of the firmament or above the firmament. And they're called the seven rishis, or the major ones are called the seven rishis in all the ancient Indian texts and all the ancient texts. So there's it's like, well, tell me what this is then. If it's not ABC, that's not a fair question. Ask me. I'm not going to have an answer for that. So what this is,
I mean, you're proposing that everything we know is wrong. I mean, I'm
proposing that we don't live on a ball and that we're not moving. That's easily provable. So then you go from there. Then we have to explore, and then we have to find out those answers. And we're not even allowed to really be online. I mean, this is the same censorship we've seen with COVID. Like, so many flat earth channels get shut down. So many people who are trying to do research at home, they don't have big budgets like the huge NASA $1 billion black hole budget. I mean, you think NASA's not a hoax organization? Like, do you really believe that we went to the moon? Do you really believe that they're on Mars now?
That's a separate question.
No, they're liars, and this is
and I
that's
believe
an
that
important
NASA
thing.
is a military organization. I covered NASA for many years. I have a close colleague who is Dr. Carl Grossman, who has documented much of NASA. You have 7 colonels going up in the space shuttle. Why do you have to have 7 colonels going up in the space shuttle?
Yeah, I mean, and in the shuttles, by the way, they have a slide inside, and they slide down and they go into an underground space, and they have tons of food for days, and they can just hide out. Nobody's going up in those things. And anybody who's going up there and they even admit they can only go to low Earth orbit. The rest is all CGI and green screen lines.
So what is an orbit? So what is low Earth orbit in that case?
Well, that's what we're thinking is like the ether drift. So as the firmament moves around us, this is like the constellation stars and whatever are moving. As you go higher, the things can move faster, and so you can technically catch an ether drift. So you could. I mean, they use helium. I mean, NASA buys like 95% of all helium in the world because they send things up on balloons. But technically, you could have things, floating up into right at the edge of the firmament in that kind of low Earth orbit because they can't leave that space.
So that's a container. The firmament is
kind
of a glass dome.
Yeah, it's considered possibly, there's a lot of speculation on what it is. Some people think it's like a type of crystal. Some people think it's actually water, a certain type of phase of water, frozen water, which makes a lot more sense, being that water is considered above and below the firmament. There's ether, which has been taken out. That was Einstein's role, was to remove ether from the equation. And set off like all of the physicists into their own little delusions. But that's as far as they can go up. Now, how they're doing it and how they're, they do their airplanes where they drop so that they're floating. This kind of hoaxes that they do. But, we can admit that they never went to the moon, and then they lie and say that they can't go to the moon because they've lost the technology. But meanwhile, they have all of the CGI crap on Mars, which has been proven to be Devon Island in Canada. We actually take their pictures, take the red film off, and we can find the exact land masses in Devon. So, I mean, we know that these organizations lie to us. And we can also prove that we're on a flat plane. We can prove that there's a firmament. We can prove that there's no 8-inch per mile square curvature because we've done laser tests that go, 30, 40, 50 miles out, and they're straight. So there's no bending of light. There's no curve happening there. So that's what's fundamental. That's the foundational that's best to start with. And we do need astrologers and people who understand this because it needs to be applied properly into the astrology. And it needs to work like Santos Bonacci does a type of, he does astrophysiology from that flat earth model perspective. That would be like one source if people wanted to look at it from, that direction, and where the corrections might be. And it doesn't really change too much other than the fact that what we think we're seeing and their movements might be explained differently, right? But they're still there. They still exist. They are still what they're actually considered as demigods. So from like ancient, knowledge, right? Like that they're considered demigods that affect us, that play with us or toy with us, and they affect our, our ego and how we are in this world, like when we're born, right? Like I'm a Leo with, a moon in Pisces and my ascendant in Taurus, for example, and it influences and affects, how I am in this particular incarnation. And that those influences are very important. And I almost think in the flat earth model, it becomes even heightened, becomes even more important because they're closer to us. How can they influence us from so far away? It makes more sense that their light and their energy is influencing us very close to us. They're here, they're close.
I don't think they influence us at all.
Well, you don't think astrology is influential?
No, I don't think that we're seeing influences of the planets. I think we're doing divination on the positions. I don't think that the comet,
Comets,
12, 13 astronomical units away, a chunk of ice can affect me, but I think
no, I didn't say that.
I can read its position. So to me, astrology is a divination art. I do astrology as divination.
However, however you see it. I mean, how I see it is just that we are bodies of water, and it affects water differently. The energies affect water differently than, when we're like in the womb, for example, versus when we come out, hence the imprinting, and that it affects us because my personality is very different, obviously being who I am. And I can see that, I can read about it, and it makes sense to me that that's, how I became or how I grew, like through the astrological information. And so it's very valuable to like know who you are, know why you have the tendencies you have, right? And what my negative traits might be. And so I can learn like how to, corral them or how to improve myself. Like I just see them as a kind of gift, that I can have more self-reflection.
Do you know your chart?
I know it somewhat, I know it to the point of usability for, like I said, for my own inner work. And I don't really do like day-to-day stuff. I used to do that a lot more.
So what's your take on, for example, Mars square Neptune?
Well, what I know about, I don't know a lot about this other than squares tend to be more difficult, right? And Neptune's energies tend to be, that's the water, that's considered water energy, right? Or the element of water. And then Mars is like of war, or considered like more aggressive. So that would be, something that might be more difficult in the chart. That's the light. That's the 101 that I would be able to apply. Cause that, again, I'm not an astrologer.
Okay. So kind of taking a step back, I don't need to believe that the world is a sphere and that there's a solar system model. But what I notice is that that model has a lot of mathematics involved, and that it's used every day for navigation, communication, commerce, timekeeping, and geography. And a large number of people are doing this every day. And what I'm not seeing is any glitch in the system. I'm not seeing any way in which those technologies fail because they're calculated for a sphere, but really we're on a plane. And
are they though? Because are they really calculated for a sphere? Because, for example,
sure,
a lot of people
know the equations.
Wait, hold on. A lot of people
think equation is a sphere.
A lot of people do think that they are, like, for example, people who build bridges, right? And the mathematics of bridges. Well, they don't use curvature when they're creating bridges. So you think they would have to, they'd have to very much use the curvature calculation.
Well, famously, I grew up near the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. I don't know if you're familiar with this. For a long time, it was the longest suspension bridge in the world. It connects Brooklyn and Staten Island. And maybe it was a 10-minute drive from my house. So I've driven past it a million times. And it's got two very high towers. And the calculation is that the towers are half an inch further apart at the top than they are at the base. And that's a measurement of the curvature.
That's a
because
cool
they're not
story,
really
but that's
parallel. They're very slightly out of parallel, and they're about 4,000 feet apart.
and if they have to be out of parallel, there might be an actual other reason for it. Maybe it's whatever's under the ground. There's all sorts of other explanations of why they would do that, but they don't put that in their curvature calculations. And in fact, one of the things that I learned when I was in university and I was doing my math courses, is that I was doing one calculation. It was for a bridge, and they actually put in a curvature calculation in the beginning of the equation. But then at the end of the whole calculation, they actually removed it again. And I was like, what? Why would they do that?
Did you ask the professor
That's really
why?
strange.
Did you ask the TA or the professor about that?
No, I don't think I did. This was, so
Now it
long
seems
ago.
to deserve a follow-up question. I mean,
Yeah, now I should go hunt him down and
why
find out what
not?
the hell.
I mean, he's
but
probably still in
I think
business,
it's because it's a trick of the math, and that's the thing. We can't rely on the math and the statistics because they'll adjust for it. Same thing, like you go into an airplane, go ask the pilot. A lot of the pilots will admit it's flat because the thing is they have their gyroscope in there. They do not nose down. And so if they're flying on a ball, they would have to keep nosing down to stay on the ball. Otherwise, they're flying off into space.
No, they're
right,
flying
presumably.
Parallel to the surface, wherever the surface is.
If they're going parallel to the surface, then they keep flying straight. But they have to keep nosing down.
They like you walk along the sidewalk.
I'm on the sidewalk.
They're walking along a big sidewalk in the sky at 35 feet.
Oh, you're saying that the air is part of the Earth?
Sure,
the
it
air
is.
The
atmosphere most certainly is part of the Earth.
Unfortunately, we have studies that show otherwise. That's not the case.
Wait. How is the atmosphere not part of the Earth? I mean, the atmosphere goes right down to the floor of my office.
So that's part of the way that they've lied to us, right? So they'll say if the Earth is spinning, right? So if the Earth is spinning, right? Why couldn't a helicopter even hover for several hours and not, right? Couldn't it move under? Then they go, well, that's because the atmosphere spins with the Earth. But then they'll say, well, how does Foucault's pendulum prove the Earth spin? Because that's one of the huge globe Earth proofs, right? Foucault's pendulum. And then they'll say, well, you're an idiot because the Earth is spinning underneath the pendulum. So this is like the mental machinations
that does not involve
happen.
the atmosphere. I've hung out
yes,
with
it does.
It quite a lot. Have you seen the thing?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of the thing.
No, but I mean, I sat there with it.
It's all a lie. There's Eric.
Let's just take a gas. In some volume, V, and over here is going to be vacuum of equal volume, and we're going to remove the barrier. You know what's going to happen spontaneously, right? The gas is going to fill the available volume once it becomes available.
The thing is, like, what has to happen, like, it took me 6 months to come out of this delusion. And, because I was indoctrinated into science, like, I believed it wholeheartedly. I thought people who believed this were crazy or stupid or loopy or whatever. But I had a friend who was just there for me with all my questions. And I'm very grateful to that person because then I was very rude and dismissive of everything. And because it brings up a lot of ego, right? But finally I just bought a Nikon P900 camera. And I'm like, screw this. I'm going to go do my own experiments. I got to see this for myself.
What lens did you have on the camera?
I just had whatever their top lenses. I don't know what these things are called.
I mean, how many millimeters was the lens?
I don't know, man. Like, it's you want me to pull it out of the closet?
Scientific, if you're going to, yeah, sure. I'd love to see it. I mean,
so I had to do a different lens for the sun. So this isn't, I don't know where the one I had to attach. I had to attach the main lens. But anyway, this is
so was it like a long lens, couple 100 millimeters or something like that?
1 second. So this one is a 83 time wide optical zoom, 4.3 to 357 millimeter. I don't know there. What 83 optical zoom camera. That's all that's all I know about it.
Right.
And
so what I hear you saying is that the calculations of a ball Earth that are successfully used for navigation, communication, commerce, timekeeping, geography, that actually the people using those calculations are really using a flat Earth calculation, and they're deceived in this, or
Well,
they're
they're
playing,
obviously deceived
or they're
because they
playing
don't.
along with it.
No, they probably, I think most people believe, I mean, they believe it and they try to fit their math and shoehorn their math into the belief.
No, but I mean,
the model,
place. It's not like you can fake these things. I can tell you exactly when the sun's going to rise in the Philippines tomorrow.
Of course, the spheres that are moving around us are a clock. They're clockwork. They're all run by clockwork. It's very easy to do those calculations. So, again, like, it's not that I know that you're stuck on those points, and I totally
No,
get
I'm not.
it.
They're technicalities that I confronted virologists with.
But that's not something I've
confronted
looked.
Mark Bailey with, and I got real answers.
But what? But
Right.
I don't need to be confronted. This is not my wheelhouse. But if you want to confront like David Weiss, I'm sure he'd have those answers for you. Or if you want, or maybe Austin.
You are positing this to the public. I mean, you are proffering.
Absolutely, because it's true. It's
but I would
we're
never
not on a ball.
Taken a we can't believe the virologist's approach to the story. I took 2 years. Really, by the end of a year, I had a grasp on the PCR and was able to confront Buston, the most famous published guy on the PCR, on his own terms. I went from inside the system and could talk about the PCR in his language. And that's where he fell apart.
Yes.
So I had to master the entire, enough of it to have my bearings, to be able to explain to the public why.
Well, look, if you wanted to send your
true.
questions ahead of time, that would have been helpful. Then I could go into those arenas of study.
But I mean, what is nighttime is a very basic question. I
already answered that. Nighttime is when sun's moving away from you and there's no light in the sky. So the light in the sky is moved away from your perspective, from your viewpoint, because you're not Superman and you can't see forever. It's a spotlight effect over
the sun is still there.
Dome.
I just can't see it.
Yes. You can see that far away. You can see across the entire, you can see to Africa. You do have an eye limit. You do have a limit to how far your eye can see,
But the sun is bright. So
it fades away and you see the sunset, you see the lights, you see the twilight as it moves further away. And because it's coming through the dome, it has its space that it illuminates. And if you looked at the model, it would make a lot of sense for you. You'd be able to understand that. Those are very simple things. But the thing is, when you come into this topic, what I recommend is just people start with the simple stuff, not getting into complexities, because that's what, FE Core and some of the flat earth groups are doing. We're doing the experiments now because this is not studied. A lot of this material has not been allowed to be studied. We don't have those budgets, like I said, like NASA has. So we have to just stick to the things that we know are false. We are at falsification stage. We know we don't have movement. We know that things are flat. We can measure we can see things too far. There's thousands of examples where we can see land masses too far. We have other experiments that prove that even Marconi's first transmission proves that it's flat across the transatlantic. You can't get those radio transmissions curving around anything. Microwave radiation proves it's flat.
Sure you can. There's different types of waves. AM and FM work differently. There are shortwave radios can communicate.
They all have a spectrum that they have to go. They go out and they have different radiations depending on how far they are. But microwaves are short and they get blocked by things. So they actually have a stopping point there. So no,
shortwave is not microwave. Do you believe in GPS?
But they're on the spectrum.
Do you use GPS in your car?
So it's very easy for them to have GPS. Everything's ground or undersea cables. So everything's towers. And then they just have the towers work for you. And they do have some satellites on balloons that do float. That's like even your Starlink, they're all on balloons, for example. And, there's tons and tons of tests, but like, for example, like you can have 10,000 mile radio waves that are not blocked by curvature. How can you have that happen without an obstruction. There has to be an obstruction. You have like mirror flash tests of infrared mirrors from miles and miles away that should be blocked by, 8 inches per mile square curvature should be blocking those mirror flashes like the military uses. And we can see that flash. That should not happen. They're very specific. If light is bending, you wouldn't see it. There has to be a line of sight. And there's many tests done. Flat bodies of water, that they're traveling across. The radio transmission, the 2,200 mile radio transmission of Morse code, that's transatlantic. That's the one I was mentioning, the Marconi one. That is impossible. They even laughed at the beginning. They're like, there's no way that's going to go across the transatlantic. You have curvature to go through. You can't
but shortwave,
do that.
But whatever you can communicate by shortwave radio, vast distances. I mean, incredibly far, far below the so-called horizon, you can communicate thousands of miles by shortwave radio.
Right, straight, but there's nothing blocking it. So, and then they try to explain it away with like skywave propagation, these kinds of things. So they always invent a story around it. Like the ionosphere is like 40.
Why is this? You're basically saying that every single technology from yacht navigation to GPS is lie. Why propagate this lie?
To hide the land, for one, to hide the extra land that they have, the extra resources, to hide our history, to keep us in a fiction. So, for example, like the all capital name, like in law, the dead fiction. Because if we believe this, if we believe we're just infinitesimally small and hurtling through space, we don't matter. We're not the center of this place. We're not godly in that way. And so there's lots of reasons to lie, to keep the money train going to NASA and all these fake space organizations, to keep kids in illusion in their minds, to keep them focused on things that aren't real, to keep them away from real inventions and truth is massive. I mean, that's massive power when you can do that, when you can, keep kids in illusions, like you train them that there's viruses and dinosaurs and this sort of evolution lie. And all of these things fall apart when you realize that we're in, a tube torus with a flat plane across, that we're magnetic, that we're in an electromagnetic reality, that we have ether, we have literally free energy right here in the air that we can grab and use for all sorts of things. We don't need any of the crap that they've, so-called invented, like the lies of climate change even go away. Like there's so many things that fall away. It's why it's important to know this. And it's why I encourage people to research it. And I'm not a flat earth teacher, but I am an encourager. And I encourage people to do their own work because it really is an inside job. It's just like even coming into the law awareness. Spiritually, you have to come to that place where you're going to take self-responsibility for these things. And you're going to do that work to see where your blind spots are so that you can not be fooled by these, illusionists that are keeping us asleep. And this is the time of the Great Awakening. So I think that's why a lot more discussion is happening around these topics that are really kind of tender because, there's core wounds that we all deal with. And I think this one triggers like certain types of abandonment wounds and things in us. Like what I had go on when my friend was telling me this, I was really upset about it. But then once I realized that this was just my cognitive dissonance triggers, that I wanted that worldview because it held together what I thought was reality, and that it meant that I had to throw out all the things that I thought I believed and then introduce them one back into another. And that was work, and I didn't want to have to do that work.
Shine bright like a diamond, shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond, shine bright like a diamond. Fine light in a beautiful sea, I choose to be happy. You and I, we're like diamonds in the sky. You're a shooting star, I see a vision of ecstasy. When you hold me, I'm alive. We're like diamonds in the sky. I knew that we'd become one right away. rays. I saw the light inside of your eyes. Tonight, you and I were beautiful like diamonds in the sky. I too, so alive. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. And we're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. And we're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Palms rise to the universe as we moonshine and Molly feel the warmth of the epic night. We're like diamonds in the sky. Your shooting star I see, a vision of ecstasy. When you hold me, I'm alive. We're like diamonds in the sky. I knew that we'd become one right away. Oh, right away. At first sight, I felt the energy of sun rays. I saw the light inside of your eyes. Tonight, you and I were beautiful like diamonds in the sky. I too, so alive. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. We're beautiful like diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Oh, yeah, yeah. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Shine bright like a diamond. Diamonds in the sky. Shine bright like a diamond. 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 Something like that.
That's the unknowable majesty of space. That the greatest possible distance we can conceive, the outer limits of our imagination, is just the beginning. That's why the stars are just fireflies stuck up on that bluish black thing. Did I just say?
Let's
But I'm
pause there for a
glad
second.
that I did it.
One thing you seem to keep coming back to is that the idea of a ball Earth is a matter of belief,
Yes,
not
absolutely.
a matter of technical practice, for example, not a matter of
Correct.
observation.
Correct.
Do you personally do anything that involves the ball Earth? Do you navigate? Have you looked through a telescope?
Yeah, of course. How does looking at a telescope tell me what I'm sitting on right now? Nothing.
Well, okay,
Tells
no,
me
no.
nothing.
Take that away. In day to day, do you do anything that involves these technologies of the ball Earth? Do you know how to navigate by sea, for example? Can you find the North Star?
Yeah, I can find the North Star. Sure, I could work a compass, like that.
So why are the stars?
But they all
you
prove
take
a
time
flat Earth.
exposure of the North Star. Why are in the course of a few hours you can see that the stars appear to streak around the North Star, which stays still? How does that happen?
Well, the firmament is moving. So really, when you're filming that, you're filming the motion of the firmament.
But why does the North Star stay still?
The North Star is the magnetic center. Yeah, that's where the center. That's Polaris. That's the center of the tube torus. So if you ever looked at like a tube torus, so this is a theory of what we are living in. The tube. If you want, I can. Do you want me to share my screen? Just
Sure.
show a quick picture. Sorry, 1 second. You have to enable it for me.
Yeah. Okay. So we're looking for a tube. I can enable it. What do I have to do?
I think you click on share screen, and it should give you an
Multiple
option.
participants can share simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
Tube torus.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
TORUS images.
I'm gonna share. Okay,
It's like a spotter.
Yeah, can you see that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so here, right? Oh, has a thing on it. So this is the working model so far that we've been able to come to. So Polaris would be here in the center, right? So everything that's moving in motion around it. And this is, by the way, what explains like ley lines and this kind of thing. So this is a tube torus, but you see the center is flat. So this is where we live. And then it is circular, you see, in this way. So it's not a globe, but there's a circular aspect to it. That could explain some of the maths. And if you look at the whole thing, you could call it a ball. Like if you looked at the entire torus, right? But that's not where we live. That's not our land masses and everything are on the center. So that's the basic block domain wall, this stable, unchanging magnetic energy. And that's the idea.
What's underneath? What's underneath? What's down there?
Yeah. So well, I mean, you have to go into folklore for a lot of this stuff. So it's considered that. So this is the heavens and whatever. So whatever's down here, there's like huge cave systems and stuff. There's considered another type of water under here. There's like where we meet the bottom of the water. There's like a man who is a diver. And they go down a little buggy and they actually hit another type of water that they can't penetrate. It's almost like glass, but it is water. So we don't really know what's down here. Some say in above this space or in this space are the heavens, so the heavens, and then below it is the hell. But these are just religious models that have explained this over like the Toltecs or the Mayans and the Incans, and like if you look at all their models, it kind of more matches this, but then they use symbology, so they'll use like a turtle or they'll use an elephant standing on 4 pillars and these kinds of descriptions. But this can help, like I would say, in your technical brain, because I see you're very intelligent in that way. You need those things, and I have a really good friend who's like that too. It took him a couple of years of me like just poking at him till he sort of figured it out for himself. But some of this sort of looking at it from this angle can probably help you more with like the math or the physics. So just I can give you like all of my slides. I can give you all kinds of links and stuff. It's just something that you don't get overnight. It's something you have to dive into and you have to be willing to look at it, right? So, and there's the day-night cycle I just wanted to show you. So as I was explaining, right? So here's like June 21st. So here would be the sun. It's coming through the firmament. Here's where it spans. Here's the space that it spans. And here's where it is March 20th, September 22nd. So this is where it spans in this time of year. And then December 21st over here. So you can see then we have more of the light reaching. And that's because of the angle of where it is coming in through the firmament.
Is the sun inside or outside the firmament?
The real source is outside. So here, I can't show you this video, but this is an experiment where they did this. So they put like a dome, over. And so you can see from the pen here, this is the light source, but it actually is reflecting inside. So it's going in. So that you can actually prove this in these models of these. So depending on how far away it is from the source or close, it will make these three shapes here. So from the outside,
all every day, all the time. I mean,
rotating around.
We're at
There's
solstice.
the summer solstice. Here's the summer solstice. Yeah. So here's
why
June
are
21st.
the days long down in Australia right now, but they're short up in the north?
Yeah. So there's, if you see down here, the equator and the Tropic of Capricorn, right, and you see the Tropic of Cancer, and then the circle, the inner circle here, right. So they are going to have the difference of how the sun spans in their area, where over their landmass. So it'll be different to where it is on our landmass during that rotation. So there's like consider 2 main rotations where the sun is like looks higher and looks lower. So that's the cycle or its motion. I think I have a picture of that too. Oh, there's the observation. So here's like the light coming in, actual sun, apparent sun. differences just as an image. And then we can do this. This is the actual experiment. Sun position data projected onto a plane surface versus through a pinhole camera of long exposure of the sun for a year. So we know it has this shape. It does this same, repeated dance.
But the sun does a figure 8. Have you, if you could?
That's the antilemma. That's the antilemma. So that's looking at it from analemma. That's looking at it from a different perspective.
Same place every day.
Same thing.
So when Anthony did an analemma, holds an unofficial world record.
The analemma works on a flat Earth. It does work.
But the sun's
so
moving
it actually explains
in
it.
a figure 8 in the analemma. And when I look at the sun rising and setting across the Adirondacks, well, it's actually the Catskills. It creeps up and it creeps down, and then the same is happening at sunrise in the east. It's creeping up the horizon, and then it's creeping down the horizon dependably every year. But what you're saying is that this is all just simply wrong. I mean, that's ultimately you can't offer a technical explanation.
I don't know what you're meaning. What is wrong? Like, you haven't given me details of what you're talking about.
Well,
so I don't know what math you're talking about. Like, I'd have to look at the math and then have to analyze it.
Everything works.
I already did. It works on the flat Earth because, again, you're coming up from the height. So here's what I was saying about the torus field and the different. So here's the path of Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. Okay. And this all works in the tube torus and over. This is the ISS field.
Those loops are retrograde. So
yeah, they'll have different
retrograde, for example, right? The Venus.
So
all of these.
That's one of the patterns. These are just some of the patterns that it makes. But they're all repeatable patterns.
Well, I get
they
that.
all fit it. They just all fit. This is just showing some of the sacred geometry that it all works inside the tube torus model.
Yeah. For example, Copernicus discovers the heliocentric model by figuring out what Mars retrograde is.
Copernicus was like an idiot, actor, like just a face of whatever. He wasn't of any value, as kind of a moron. So whatever you think about Copernicus wasn't a smart man.
Copernicus's discussion because he was a moron. So I have only one last question for you, because we're not going to be able to come to any understanding, for example, on what GPS is. You're saying it's all.
No, I already explained GPS.
How does it work in the middle of how does it work in the middle of the ocean then? How does
in the middle of the ocean?
Sure. Satellite phones work in the middle of the ocean.
Well, again, I didn't say there were no satellites, other than there were some floating around on balloons. So I'm sure they have those. And I'm sure they can do some, if it's under 40 millimeter wavelength, they can have their refraction through the towers and however they need to get it to you. But that would be a question to ask someone who's done those studies.
Right.
This is another one, by the way.
The phones work. I mean, what I'm saying is that
but they're not coming from where you think they work, but they're not coming from where you think they are coming from. They're not coming from satellites in outer space. And that's kind of ridiculous anyway, because they're apparently traveling like thousands of miles around faster, and there's supposedly, thousands of them up there, and we don't see any of them crashing down to Earth, coming down to Earth.
They do. They crash.
They do
sure
with balloons.
Crash.
They crash and they have balloons.
And
and they have balloons attached to them. The ones we've seen crash have balloons attached to them, and they try to hide those as well, because that's what they are. They have to put them up on balloons. So the ones that are up there are floating around on helium. They're not floating around in outer space. So you can still have your GPS, but they're not what you think they are. They're not floating in outer space in space.
No,
where you don't even have
GPS or low Earth. They're low Earth. They're not outer space. They're very close to the atmosphere.
Exactly, because they're on balloons and they're in low Earth, so they're close.
How do they control its trajectory? There's only 30 of them or so. How do they spread out over the entire globe? How do they keep them?
There's no globe, honey.
Place. How do they to dependably?
Again, so like, remember I said at the beginning, Eric, this is the problem. This is the challenge, is that this is like the biggest, Pandora's box here, and you want answers to your stuff that you're narrowing in on. And that's not really the way to go about understanding it. You first have to undo the lies, and then you can begin to do the science of asking the questions and making the corrections.
Well, there's
But when
different
you're
methods of
asking,
logic.
I don't
There's
have to
different-
prove it. I don't have to prove any of it. All I have to do is show you that it's a lie. For example, specular reflection proves it's flat. You would have distortion if there's a ball. Everybody goes to a mountainside, stream, and river, or a flat plain of body of water and can see their reflection. There is no distortion in the water whatsoever. You cannot have that on a ball. That is not seen. So we have all the proofs that we're not moving, that we're not on a ball, period. Now, the rest of it is everybody else's job to do. And that's why it's important that
I'm a journalist above all else. And before I personally, we have a different editorial policy here. Do you mind taking off screen share?
Yep.
We have a different editorial policy. So before I could go public with any statements about a test or a virus, I had to understand this from a wide diversity of perspectives and be able to argue all the different sides of the issue.
Well, when you argue, so when you come into a debate, how you fairly
Not debate, arguing, present, show that I can understand.
Sure, but show that like I said, this is not my expertise. So, if you want someone who has that expertise, and find that particular person, then ask them those questions in advance and be fair to give them time to, dive into that particular research or to bone up on that research. Because what I'm saying is this is a huge discussion. That means that every little thing that you think has to be thrown out and looked at. And that's not for me to prove. That's a logical fallacy. So the onus isn't on me.
Listen. I work with devices that work fine. They can allow me to make predictions. I do not mean astrological predictions.
That's great. And you even
so
said
why
that your
would
astrology
that's like someone
works on
telling
a
me
flat
my
earth.
car's tires are
Literally
square.
your astrological software is geocentric software. It isn't connected to the ball model.
Sure, I can switch to heliocentric anytime. It's an option in the software to switch to heliocentric.
It's an option, but that's not how it's read. It's not correct in the ball model. So you can put your little, cartoons of the planets outside of it, but for accuracy, you need to have your sun and your moon in your geocentric position, because you're actually coming at it from the Earth as the center. Like there are
very good astrologers who read heliocentric. The moon is not in they throw the moon out, or the moon is where the Earth is.
Well, I'm sure there's all kinds of different stories that people can make up, but that's not what the reality is. And so all I'm presenting here is this is the reality. We know we don't live on these things. And if you want to know more, burst that bubble first. And if you want to present it according to what you need for your radio program, then you can present it in that scientific way.
But epistemologically, you're saying I have to suspend my belief in the ball model and accept the flat, alternative cosmology model, then I'll understand it.
Well, then you can study it from that angle and see how it's done and see where the magic tricks are done, or how they're actually are doing it already from the flat earth perspective, and how the maths have been manipulated so that you can come at it correctly. So it's like the same thing with coming at, what I was saying with the germ theory. It is the same way. It's saying that, well, I'm going to assume that the germ theory is false. How now can I look at the body and its health and how it functions?
I never did that.
I did.
I looked at the virus model many, many times. I was involved in early HIV work in the early 90s. And particularly with SARS-CoV-2, I looked at what was happening in the world around me. So I listened to my police scanner around the clock. I observed that there were buses traveling to and from New York City, and I looked for patterns of spread.
I know you said that already, but again, my point is that then do that for flat Earth. Do it for yourself. Do that. Come at it from that perspective. It'll be more difficult, then realizing that you can see too far, and then that means there's no curve, or the simplicity of this beautiful place that we've been lied to about, and that they lied, and that means everything else needs to be questioned. But it's the suspension. Sure, you can come in as suspending your belief. You don't have to do it the way you did coming into virus thing. You can do it easier or differently.
Well, the virus
right?
story is my 100th investigation.
Well, this could be your 101 investigations, but
we've been looking at this closely. But when I first took up astrology, what I did was I came at it as an investigator and made sure that all of the things that I was told were actually happening the way that I was told, and I looked for problems. And what disturbs me about this is,
but if you have the model of the ball and you fit your
navigation, timekeeping, various forms of geography, they're all wrong. All of them are all wrong.
Well, I don't know what all those are. You're not showing me what those are.
Map makers making you're saying the Tropic of Cancer.
Oh, the maps are wrong. Oh yeah, those maps are very wrong.
But then why do they work?
Oh my goodness.
I'm saying, why do they work?
How do they work? How are they working? They're only working on the land as you're going to.
No,
from
I can
point A to
navigate
point
by
B.
sea to somewhere else. You can take
look at, you know what might be good for you to help you is to look at emergency airplane landings. Okay, look at those. Look at it from the globe map. Okay. And then look at it from the flat map. That was really helpful for me to wake me up to this con. So if you look at emergency landings, say there's a woman who's pregnant, they have to land, or in a medical emergency, they have to suddenly land. Where they land to where their destination is makes zero sense. They will land way off course, and you'll go, why would they go 1,000 miles out of their way to land in this spot? That doesn't make sense. They would land I'm just saying, it's a very simple proof. They would land the closest landmass that is there, which is what they do. And so when you map that on the flat map, it's a line. It makes sense. So that might help with the whole mapping issue of how
there's a number of different considerations that would go into where 747 might land. It needs the correct length runway. It needs but
it would be the closest possible. It wouldn't be way out of its way, hours and hours out of its
example. I can
I can give you a few. I just have to pull up my.
I don't want to work.
My data.
I mean, plus this is largely corporate confidential data.
No,
I've never been in an emergency landing. On my way to Ukraine, there were 3 or 4 people who got sick on the flight. And I'm thinking, we're right over the Atlantic, and I'm thinking, geez, the closest airport is Shannon. We would have to go to Ireland. Ireland, you look like you're Irish. We'd have to go to Ireland from here, and they did not. The nurses on the flight took care of the patients, and we landed in Kiev.
So I think there was one South Africa, landed in Brazil, but they were going to Argentina. There's one.
You have the flight number and date?
No, David Weiss would have that information. So landing so far off course of where they were going, but it's straight on the flat map. It's a straight road. It's, I think, Buenos Aires.
But I have to accept this on faith.
No, you can go. No, I'm just presenting like tidbits so that you can go do your own work. Everybody has to do their own research. I'm not. This is why it's a contentious, hot debate, because there's a lot of conditioning. There's a lot of lies with statistics, lies with math, lies with models. There's a lot. We've been indoctrinated since birth. We're really tied to the idea. I don't know why we're tied to the idea. Actually, once I woke up, I'm like, what a stupid idea. It's actually
we're tied to the idea because the people who work
because
the model,
we've been indoctrinated.
It works for them. To navigate,
but you can work your model pretty easily. You can just take the flat Earth and throw it over a sphere easily, and you can work your. But you've taken distances.
Advanced mathematics. The mathematics of a plane are different than the mathematics of a sphere.
Yeah, but you can very easily manipulate that. You can very easily convince people that they're going over a ball, but you don't actually put.
No, I'm not talking about people believing in the public. I'm talking about.
I understand
operating the technology like air traffic controllers,
and they know, And if you ask a lot of the pilots, which a lot of them will get marginalized if they say it, but there are flat earth pilots who say it's flat. They don't curve down. It's absolutely flat plane. The horizon rises to meet their eyes. You cannot deny it. I suggest people look into Rory Cooper, or actually Rory Cooper's work, which he was all scrubbed off YouTube. But that would help because he explains the perspectives really well. And I'll find someone for you who has done this type of work. But if you can give me, say a list of, where the challenges are. So like what specifically you're talking about, what math specifically you're referring to, then I can hand it off to someone who already does that kind of work.
Sunrise
and then
equation.
They can get you that. I already addressed the sunrise and sunset.
No, the sunrise equation.
So if you need someone to do equations for you.
There's a thing called the sunrise equation to calculate what time the sun will rise anywhere on Earth.
But that's very easy to do because this is a clock in the sky. It's regulated.
But it's spherical. The sunrise equation is based on relationships between spheres, and it works every time.
You can do this. You can also manipulate the way the size of the moon is and the distance, and do 66.6 degrees and this kind of Masonic math that they have, and it works as well. So you can manipulate the math to force it to work.
No,
I mean, now they say that the moon faces, they say the moon rotates. They say the moon rotates. They say the moon rotates. So that works for their math, but it doesn't actually rotate. It doesn't spin. But they say it spins.
But there's
the
no
same
verifying
side.
that. The sunrise equation.
Yes, there is. Absolutely.
Hold on. No. Not from simple observation, no telescope involved.
From simple observation is what we're talking about. We don't need complicated math to see that the Earth is flat and that the sun is close and gives a hot spot and has angular rays.
Amanda, I'm not saying that. And I have one last follow-up question, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying that using the sunrise equation, I can tell you the time and direction the sun will rise in Tasmania, and it will be there.
Great. Awesome.
Why does that work?
Why do I have to answer that? I don't know your calculation. You haven't shown that to me.
Hold on. It's the sunrise equation. It's a famous equation. It's used by everyone and everything calculating
then that
sunrise.
Would be something to give to me like ahead of time so that I can go and figure out why, because I help people not die from sickness. That's what I do all day. So I would hand that off to one of my experts, the flat earth community, all day long as their field of expertise, and then they would be able to give you that answer.
Okay, one last question. What is your confidence level that you're right about this, and what is the how would you estimate the possibility of being wrong?
Well, you have to, every single day I empty out my entire body and I give all to God, and I ask to be filled up with knowledge. So I never claim that I know anything. I'm an empty vessel to be filled up with knowledge every single day. And that's how I do know things. That's how I am accurate in my life because of that.
I mean, do you admit that it's a possibility that you're wrong about this?
Absolutely. 100% no. 100% we live on a flat earth. 100%.
So you're 100% confident there's no possibility that you might be wrong.
There's no ball. No, there's too many proofs. There's too much math. There's too much science. I've just shown you a bunch of them, but you want your math. You want your stuff.
No, I want to know why
proofs.
my math
want
works. I'm looking
at it's because they have Masonic math that's manipulated. But it's the same math, just manipulated, and it will work because that's how you lie with statistics. You just massage them so that it works. It's the same data. It's all the same data. And you could take that data and put it in the flat earth model and it would also work. And they've done this with the ball earth. That's why I was saying they've done here's the distance or whatever, but then you start asking deeper questions and then they have to start manipulating that. They have to add things. They have to add new math. They have to add Einstein's relativity to explain it away. They have to add dark matter to explain it away. But those things are the additions of the science that are not necessary.
No, dark matter does not come into play unless we talk about what holds a galaxy together. We're not there. But I want to just end on the note that
it's an example.
You're 100% confident that you're right and are leaving no opening that you might be wrong.
I used to believe we lived on a ball too. I believed it all too. I was there. So I know where you sit. No,
I'm asking you spiritually and scientifically.
Absolutely. I've already answered that question.
Okay.
Yes, 100%. We do not live on a ball. We are not flying through outer space. We don't live on a monkey ball. And that's verified, proven, and I've proven it to myself doing my own experiments. You can prove it to yourself doing your own experiments. But the thing is to really suspend what you think you know, just like I do all the time. Is the only reason I came to this, because if you think you know you live on a ball, you're never going to come to it. If you think you think the math's right because it predicts right, then you're never going to come to it. You're going to fall for the magic tricks every single time.
But so here's the thing with COVID, for example. I entered it assuming there was a virus, and every time I looked for something that acted like one, I couldn't find it.
And I entered flat Earth thinking my friend had a worm in his brain and he was a moron and I have to save him from his flat Earth beliefs, and that I was in a cult and that he was in danger. Let me finish. But I had to come in and save him. And so what I did is, when he gave me Eric Dubé's 200 proofs of a flat Earth, I went in each one. I had everything written down, and I was going to disprove every single one of those proofs. And then that's what woke me up. So it's fine to go in with that intention. I encourage people to go in with that intention. I encourage people not to take my word for it ever. I encourage people to look and to open their minds, and then to go in and try to disprove it. Work hard at trying to disprove it, because that's what wakes people up. And then you never go back, because you realize once that illusion pops, that black magic is gone from you, you are able to see clearly, and you are able to now put the pieces together of what's even happened in our history, how we have come to be, who we are in this place, and we get out of the lie. And once you're out of the lie, you can really be free, because I think we don't want to be imprisoned anymore by this bullshit. And we don't want to keep making messes of our children, lying to our children as well. We're going to think that they live in some sort of illusion. And it's just not the facts. And we already have enough science to prove that we don't live on a ball. That is nail and coffin. There's loads more of nail and coffin proofs that we don't live on a spinning globe through space. But now we have to do the work together of what is it then? So what really is it? And that's where we are explorers once again. Where are these new lands? Can we try to get to them without getting shot? What are the maths? What are the correct maths? How do these things work on a flat Earth? And then we're actually doing it together rather than combating and trying to fight for something that controllers and evil people have lied to us about, have put onto us. Which keeps us really imprisoned. So,
Amanda,
I know it's challenging, Eric.
Listen, I don't really have a dog in this race, and the only reason I'm interested at all in the position is because so many of the people I've worked with and written about on the virus issue hold this belief. I assure you that it would not be meekly interesting to me otherwise. I would not care at all. I wouldn't pay attention to it. But when you go down the list and you see how many of the people who have done, I think, good work on the virus issue, though I don't know the extent of their original work, that's really another question. But as far as I can tell, they've done good work. I put them on my program, some of you multiple times. Otherwise, I would not be interested at all. It would not even be on my radar. It would not make a difference to me. So that's what got my attention.
Good stuff.
People like Alec and Andy and others, Steve, others.
Yeah.
Anyway, you've been very gracious.
You've been very brave
and generous with your time.
Thank you, Eric.
Right.
I appreciate you, and whatever resources you want, I can get for you. Okay.
All right. Well.
All right.
Thank you. Bless.
Thanks so much.
They always treat you like a child, and they've stolen all your instincts to be wild. Maybe you swallowed all their lies, 'cause you opened up your ears and closed your eyes. So swim, Little Mermaid, sink or It's time to pierce the sky with your sword of truth